guys, so today's video is going to be a book review. One of my reading resolutions for this year was to put up more reviews. It's something I'm currently failing at because this is the first one this year, but I wanted to do a review of this one, and as well it was a buddy read. I read The Bronze Horseman by Paullina or Simons, not entirely sure. I have the UK cover, which is nice, but I prefer both of the US covers. I prefer them over this one. And I buddy read this with Rob from Rob's Reading Roundup. I'll leave the link to his channel down below. We read this together this month, and we kept up to date with each other on Twitter. So if you'd like to see sort of our back and forth thoughts and conversations on it, you can either just go to my Twitter and sort of find it that way, or just search with the hashtag BronzeBuddyRead, which I'll leave in the title of this review. I think we did really well with keeping each other up to date on where we were at and what we were sort of thinking. This was a really interesting read for me. It's a historical novel, but it's not set in a time that I read an awful lot about. It's set in World War II, but it's set in Leningrad in Russia, which is very interesting. I've not read anything set either in that place or in that time period before, so it's very, very interesting. And it was a little slow to get into, I'm not going to lie, and I think the writing at the beginning was kind of hard to follow, because it starts off the main protagonist's point of view, which is Tatiana, and she's a really young girl. I think she's 16 when the story starts, just coming up 17, and she's very sort of not childish, but she's young, and like the writing style almost mimics that. So it's like she's thinking one thing and then it completely diverts to something else, and it was quite choppy in the beginning, but that sort of changes as she gets older and she grows throughout the book, and obviously she goes through quite a lot in this book, and so you sort of see her grow and mature, and the writing almost mimics that, which I liked. And basically the story starts out with Tatiana as this young girl, and basically there's just been an announcement on the radio that war has broken out, and you sort of see the very start of the war, and it was very interesting. The thing about this for me is that it's sort of like it's a romance book, but the most interesting thing about it for me personally was sort of like the context of it, and seeing sort of the effects of the war, and how at the beginning there's sort of a panic, people go en masse by, but then people almost forget there's a war on. People don't seem too bothered by it, and you see how the rationing starts with food and how that slowly depletes, and like the knock-on effect of it. You see the sort of suffering that people go through as a result, which was, it's like hard to read. Like people were sort of just dying in the street, you know, further into the novel. So you saw really how the war started, how it progressed, and that was almost the most interesting thing. Now, like I said, it's mostly a romance book, and it starts out, Tatiana is on the day that the war breaks out, she's told to go, you know, buy supplies, and she meets a soldier by the name of Alexander, and they have this sort of immediate connection to each other, and sort of understanding, and he ends up helping her get supplies because of his military connections. They go back to her sort of apartment, and it comes crashing down because he is sort of seeing her sister. This is where the novel sort of got a little bit weird for me. If they have this instant connection and they want to be together, he should have broke things off with her sister, but Tatiana didn't want him to break her sister's heart, so you end up having this really peculiar love triangle. I can understand almost in the beginning not wanting to break her sister's heart, but it goes on for such a long time, almost to the point of ridiculousness. Like, it's crazy how long that goes on for. And like, Alexander and Tatiana want to be together, but that's just drawn out to an insane degree. Alexander is, in some parts I really liked him and I thought he was really sweet and I just really loved him. But then there were other parts where he had such an awful temper. Some of the things he says to Tatiana are really horrible. Like, you can sort of, in some places you can see why. Like, in one scene he's trying to sort of push her away so that she won't follow him and get herself killed. But it's still, like, that was, you know, pretty hard to read. I think it would have been easier maybe if we got his point of view a little bit more. Like, you seem to just get his quite sporadically. Like, you'd get his for one chapter, then you wouldn't see his point of view again for another 200 pages. Then you'd have his point of view for 50 pages, and then you wouldn't have it again. So it was just a bit... I think it would have been a bit more fair to have both their points of view kind of fairly evenly spaced, so you could get to know both characters. I feel I got to know Tatiana very, very well. I found her a very sympathetic character. I loved how she's a very sweet person. She loves to take care of people. She's not selfish by any means. She, like with Alexander, she didn't want to break her sister's heart, so she sort of lets her have him. That's sort of, she's very sweet, and while she matures, she doesn't lose that about herself, and I really liked her for that. This is a very long book. It's, how many pages? The edition that I have is 637 pages. Now, it was a little slow going at the beginning, but it definitely picked up pace, and I definitely got really, really into it. I was really, really enjoying it. The ending I found very emotional. After all that amount of reading, it didn't end the way that I wanted it to end. I think knowing that there are 2 sequels almost kind of spoiled it for me, because how it ends, I know there must be sort of something else to it. If I had just read this and not known there were 2 sequels, I think it would have had a bit more of an impact on me. As it stands, I know that it can't end that way, if you know what I mean. But after all of that reading, I wanted a more satisfying ending than I got. I did choke up, I'm not going to lie. But after all of that reading, I wanted the ending to leave me completely satisfied. And it didn't completely. But I would definitely want to read on. I would like to read the sequels. I don't think I'll pick them up too soon. But I think I would like to continue on with the series eventually. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Bronze Horseman. I did really enjoy reading it. I really enjoyed reading it with Rob. I was a bit worried that because it's such a big book, I was so worried that I wouldn't get into the story. But I definitely did. I really loved Tatiana. I loved sort of reading a historical novel set in a different time than what I would normally go for. In places the romance was really, really good. There was a strange moment actually, now that I'm remembering, that like there's no sex scenes in the book until like a certain bit, and then there's like 50 pages of just constant sex scenes, and I was just like, okay. And some of them were like a paragraph long, and then it just carried on, really. It was almost quite amusing. But overall, I really, really enjoyed it. Would definitely recommend it for fans of historical fiction. And if you're like me and Rob and you don't normally read fiction set in this time, I would not discount it just for that reason. I would give it a go. And I think I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, because I did really, really end up enjoying it. It put me through, it did make me feel things, feel all the things. It It made me feel happy, it made me feel sad, it made me feel frustrated, it made me feel angry. It made me feel a lot of things, and that's always a good sign. It didn't leave me indifferent. I did care about the characters, and I would continue with the series. So that's my review of The Bronze Horseman. If you have read this book, let me know your thoughts on it down below. I know when I showed it in a Friday Reads, a couple of people said that it was their favourite book. So I don't think it's my favourite book, but I did definitely really, really enjoy it, and I gave it 4 out of 5. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all soon. Happy reading.